Anna sat on the edge of the porch, the late summer sun painting the Maplewood streets in shades of gold and amber. The air smelled faintly of freshly cut grass and honeysuckle, a scent she had always associated with peace. Yet today, the calm around her felt heavier than usual. She had lived in this town her whole life, married to David for 7 years. Yet somehow the comfort of familiarity carried a quiet equine she could neither name nor escape. It wasn't that Anna's life lacked happiness. She loved her home, loved David, and cherished the routines that made life predictable. But lately, she noticed moments when her thoughts would drift away. When a lingering sense of longing would settle over her heart like a soft shadow. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet persistent. She would catch herself staring out the window during dinner, imagining what it might feel like if life were just slightly different, richer, wilder, or maybe even uncertain in ways she had never dared to explore. On this particular afternoon, Anna's solitude was broken by the sound of gravel crunching under tires. A familiar figure emerged from the car parked at the edge of the driveway. Luke, her brother-in-law, had come for a visit. He was David's younger brother, tall and easygoing, with a smile that seemed to belong in a different world, one that knew how to make ordinary moments feel alive. "Hey, Anna," he called cheerfully, climbing out of the car with his usual lighthearted energy. "Got room for one more in the lemonade club?" Anna laughed softly, shaking her head. "You know, there's always room for you, Luke. Come on over." As he joined her on the porch, she noticed the small things she had always admired about him, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the subtle kindness in the way he listened, the way his presence seemed to fill a room without trying. She felt a warmth in her chest that was unfamiliar and surprising, a quiet reminder of emotions she hadn't given herself permission to explore. They talked about mundane things at first: David's work schedule, the progress of the garden, plans for the upcoming town festival, but underneath the light conversation, there was a current of something more, a gentle curiosity, a subtle tension. Anna felt her heart lift with the sound of Luke's laughter, a sound that was strangely comforting and yet complicated in ways she couldn't yet understand. After a while, Luke gestured toward the garden. "It's looking amazing this year, Anna. You've really outdone yourself. I don't know how you manage to make it look so alive all the time." She smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I guess it's the little things. Taking care of something, even if it's just flowers, gives me some peace." Luke nodded thoughtfully, and for a moment they both fell silent, listening to the faint rustle of leaves in the summer breeze. The world seemed to pause, the ordinary street around them fading into a soft blur. It was in that silence that Anna felt a subtle shift inside her, a flicker of curiosity about herself, about the emotions she was beginning to recognize but hadn't yet named. When David called from work, asking about dinner plans, Anna quickly smiled, masking the flutter of something unfamiliar in her chest. "Everything's fine," she replied, the words spilling out easily, but her mind still lingering on the gentle presence of Luke beside her. After the call, Luke helped her gather some freshly picked tomatoes from the garden. Their hands brushed lightly over the smooth skin of the fruit, a contact so ordinary, yet enough to send a shiver of awareness through Anna. She quickly shook it off, reminding herself that these feelings were nothing more than admiration, nothing more than fleeting moments of friendship. Yet even as she tried to convince herself, a small voice inside whispered that there was more beneath the surface, more curiosity, more longing, more questions that had been tucked away under years of routine and stability. She wondered, not for the first time, what it would be like if life had a hint of unpredictability. Not reckless, not unsafe, but alive in ways she hadn't allowed herself to feel for a long time. As Luke said his goodbyes and promised to return soon, Anna watched him drive away, a strange mix of relief and wistfulness settling over her. She sat back down on the porch, letting the fading sunlight wash over her. Life was quiet, steady, and safe, but in the corners of her heart, a tiny spark of something new had begun to glow. It was a spark she didn't yet understand, a spark that whispered of emotions, of questions, and of possibilities that had been hidden under the soft weight of routine and comfort. And for the first time in a long while, Anna realized that her heart was awake, waiting for something it hadn't dared to seek before. The summer air was still warm, but Anna shivered slightly, not from cold, but from the sudden awareness that life could feel bigger, more emotional, more alive than she had thought. She didn't know where these feelings might lead or whether she should follow them at all. But one thing was certain: something had changed, and she could no longer ignore it. The soft hum of the ceiling fan filled the quiet kitchen as Anna washed the dishes, the warm sunlight spilling across the counters. She tried to focus on the rhythm of her movements, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Luke. Not in a romantic sense, not yet, but in a way that made her remember who he had always been in her life. She remembered when they were teenagers, long before David had become her husband. Luke had been the younger boy next door, always a little clumsy, with a laugh that could fill a room. Anna had been 13, quiet, often lost in her books, and yet somehow Luke had always found ways to draw her into adventures. They had climbed trees together in the summer, built forts in the backyard, and shared countless late-night conversations on the porch, watching the stars blink alive one by one. Those were simpler times, filled with innocence and trust. Anna had always thought of Luke as a brother, a constant in her life who made the world feel brighter. And yet, as they had grown older, she had noticed subtle Chenzuza glance held a moment too long, a smile that lingered, a concern that felt deeper than necessary. But they had been teenagers navigating the edge of childhood and adulthood. So nothing had ever been named, nothing had ever been acted upon. After high school, life had pulled them in different directions. Luke had gone off to college in another state, while Anna had stayed close to home, eventually meeting David. Over time, the closeness of youth had faded, replaced by the familiarity of family gatherings and polite visits. But even in those brief moments, Anna felt a quiet connection, the memory of shared secrets and laughter lingering like a soft echo in her heart. When she thought about it now, she realized how much Luke had always understood her how. Even in their silence, he seemed to see the parts of her she kept hidden. It wasn't that he had ever tried to interfere with her life. He had respected the boundaries between them. But there was an unspoken bond, a gentle awareness of each other that neither time nor distance had managed to erase. The memory brought a bittersweet smile to Anna's face. She could still recall a summer evening when they had stayed up late, sitting on the roof of her childhood home, talking about dreams too big to share with anyone else. Luke had listened as she confessed her fear of being ordinary, of never doing anything remarkable, and he had nodded with that calm certainty he always carried. "You'll find your way," he had said softly, "and I'll be here cheering for you no matter what." That memory had always stayed with her. Now, sitting on her porch with him again, Anna could feel the warmth of that connection rekindling, subtle but undeniable. It wasn't a sudden spark. It was a gentle flame that had never truly gone out. And yet life had created a distance she couldn't ignore. David, her husband, her partner, her chosen love, who had never given her a reason to doubt their life together. It was that unshakable loyalty that had kept her emotions carefully folded, like pressed flowers in a book. Anna had always known that some feelings, no matter how deep or tender, were meant to remain unspoken. And still, the closeness with Luke reminded her of the parts of herself she rarely allowed to surface. The parts that longed for understanding, companionship, and recognition. One afternoon, as Luke helped her carry a basket of laundry from the line, Anna caught herself laughing at something he said, a laugh she hadn't felt in weeks. It was effortless, light, and familiar, and it carried with it the echoes of their shared past. They paused at the bottom of the steps, and for a brief moment neither spoke. The world seemed to slow around them. A gentle reminder that some connections never truly fade. "You haven't changed much," Luke said finally, brushing a lock of hair behind his ear. "Still the same patient, caring Anna I used to know." "And you're still the same Luke?" she replied softly, "always noticing things no one else does." There was a pause, a quiet understanding in the space between their words. No one had to explain what lingered beneath the surface. It was all there, unspoken, safe, and yet stirring. Anna knew that their bond was strong because it had been built on years of trust, shared moments, and understanding that didn't require grand gestures. It was a bond that could survive distance, time, and life's inevitable changes. And yet, that bond also reminded her of boundaries, of the choices she had made and the life she had committed to with David. The past could be warm and comforting, but it could also stir emotions she was not ready to face. The pull she felt wasn't about wanting more, it was about remembering something lost and beautiful. The following morning dawned with a golden light that spilled across the Maplewood streets, soft and inviting. Anna sipped her coffee slowly on the porch, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the occasional chirp of a sparrow. She tried to settle into the calm of a routine day, but her mind kept wandering back to Luke's visit yesterday. The memories of laughter, shared glances, and unspoken understanding lingered like a gentle echo, stirring feelings she hadn't expected to feel again. It was as if fate had quietly nudged her life, reminding her that some connections, no matter how dormant, were never truly gone. Anna's thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the front door. Startled, she set her mug down and wiped her hands on a towel. When she opened the door, she found Luke standing there, holding a small basket of fresh-baked bread. "I know you like cinnamon," he said with a small, shy smile. "Thought you might enjoy this?" Anna felt her heart lift in a way that surprised her. It was such a simple gesture, yet it carried an unexpected weight. She invited him in, and they walked together into the kitchen, the air between them calm but charged with the kind of energy that comes from years of connection. As they arranged the bread on the counter, their hands brushed lightly, and Anna felt a familiar warmth spread through her chest. It wasn't a romantic spark, at least not in the way one might think, but it was a deep, grounding reminder of the bond they shared. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, words were unnecessary. "Thanks for this," she said softly, smiling. "It's thoughtful." Luke nodded, his gaze lingering on her for a beat longer than expected. "I've been thinking about old times," he said quietly, "about how we used to spend entire afternoons talking about our dreams, our fears, our plans for the future. You've always been someone who listens, Anna, someone who sees things others don't." Her chest tightened, and she swallowed hard. She remembered those afternoons, vividly carefree laughter, whispered secrets under the summer sky, the feeling of being truly understood. Life had grown more complicated since then, but the memory of those moments still had power. "Sometimes I wonder how we drifted apart," Anna admitted, her voice soft. "Life just carried us in different directions." Luke nodded, a faint shadow crossing his features. "Yeah, but some things, they stay. Even if we don't see them for years, they never really disappear." They shared a quiet smile, the kind that carried both nostalgia and unspoken understanding. And then, almost as if the universe wanted to remind them how fragile yet persistent these connections could be, the doorbell rang again. Anna looked up, puzzled, and opened the door to find David standing there early from work. His face was tired but brightened immediately when he saw her. "Hey, I thought I'd surprise you," he said. Stepping inside, the three of them moved into the living room, and Anna suddenly felt the weight of dual realities pressing against her heart. On one side was the warmth, understanding, and closeness she shared with Luke. On the other side was the steady, comforting love of David, who had built a life with her that was real, solid, and safe. They talked about small things: David's work, Luke's plans for the week, neighborhood gossip, but Anna could feel the subtle tension rising, not between anyone in hostility, but in the quiet stirrings of emotion. Luke caught her gaze across the room a few times, and each time she felt a pang of something she couldn't quite name, something tender, nostalgic, and profoundly familiar. Later, when David left to attend a meeting, Anna found herself in the kitchen with Luke once again, alone. The house was quiet, and for a moment it felt as if the world had slowed down to give them space to exist together in that suspended time, you know? Luke began hesitantly. "I didn't expect to feel this when I came back." I thought seeing you would just be comfortable, but it's more than that. You've always mattered to me, Anna, and seeing you now, it reminds me how much you've shaped my life." Anna felt her throat tighten. "I know," she whispered. "I felt it too. Even when we were apart. Even when life got busy. Some things never really leave us." They stood in silence for a few moments, letting the weight of shared memories and renewed connection settle between them. There was no rush, no pressure, no need to act on feelings that could complicate life's only acknowledgement. The present had brought back the past in a way that was gentle but undeniable. A quiet reminder that the heart remembers even when logic asks it to move on. As Luke prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "We should probably take it slow," he said, his voice careful. "I don't want to make things complicated. Not for you, not for David, but I also don't want to ignore how important our bond is." Anna nodded, a small, bittersweet smile on her lips. "I understand, and I feel the same way. Let's just be mindful of it and cherish what we have without letting it hurt anyone." Luke smiled, and with a soft wave, he left. Anna closed the door and leaned against it, letting out a slow breath. Her heart was full and yet conflicted, alive with emotions she hadn't expected to feel today. Sometimes, life had a way of reminding you that feelings didn't always fade. They simply waited for the right moment, for a small twist of fate to remind you of their presence. And today, fate had done exactly that. Anna walked back to the porch, the sun now dipping low on the horizon. She felt the gentle ache of longing, not for romance, but for connection, understanding, and the warmth of someone who had always known her. The present had shifted in ways subtle but profound, and she knew that her heart had awakened to possibilities she would need to navigate carefully in the days ahead. The Maplewood evenings had a way of wrapping everything in a golden haze, softening the edges of the world. Anna sat on the porch swing, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the sky as the first stars appeared, tiny sparks in the vast twilight. Her thoughts were tangled, spinning between the comfort of her life with David and the sudden, undeniable awareness of Luke's presence in her heart. She remembered all the words she had never said, the feelings she had never admitted, growing up with Luke, sharing laughs, secrets, and quiet moments of understanding. She had learned early on that some things were too complicated to voice. And now, even as adults, she felt that same hesitation hovering between them. Luke had returned that afternoon, casually dropping by with the same ease he had always had. He smiled, carrying a basket of apples from his family's farm, and waved as if nothing had changed. Yet everything had changed. Anna could see it in the way he lingered at the doorway, the brief pauses in his voice, the glances that carried more than just friendship. "Hey, Anna," he said softly, setting the basket on the counter. "I thought you might like a few fresh apples. Mom said they were the best this season." "Thank you," she replied, feeling her chest tighten slightly. She smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You didn't have to." Luke shrugged, but the faint curve of his lips betrayed a quiet warmth. "I wanted to. You've always been good to notice the small things. I remember when we were kids, you used to make lists of every plant in the garden, every little flower that bloomed." Anna laughed softly, the memory unfolding gently in her mind. "I guess I've always liked noticing things. The small stuff feels important." They moved to the porch together, sitting in the stillness of the fading sunlight. For a moment, they simply watched the world around them, the gentle sway of tree branches, the distant laughter of children playing in the neighborhood, the soft rustle of the wind. It was in that silence that the unspoken truth hovered, delicate and tender, waiting for acknowledgement. I sometimes think about the past," Luke began, his voice low and thoughtful. "About the way we used to spend hours just talking, sitting under the stars, sharing everything and nothing at the same time." Anna nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "I remember. I miss that sometimes. It was simple then, and somehow safe. I've always cherished those memories." There it was, the unspoken longing. Neither of them could put a name to it without complicating things beyond repair. They had lives, responsibilities, and boundaries to honor. Yet the pull was undeniable. A gentle ache that lingered beneath laughter and casual conversation. Luke shifted slightly, turning to face her. I sometimes wonder, if we had been older or if life had been different, maybe things could have been simpler, or maybe more complicated. I don't know. Anna's throat tightened. She wanted to speak to admit the fluttering emotions, the unexpected warmth that came with his presence. But the words refused to come. She had made choices, built a life with David, and she loved him deeply. And yet there was a part of her heart, the part that knew Luke as intimately as anyone could, that ached to reach out, to acknowledge the quiet truth between them. I know what you mean, she said finally, her voice soft. Sometimes life reminds us of the people who've mattered to us in ways that are impossible to ignore. But we have to be careful. We can't let it change the lives we've built. Luke smiled faintly, a bittersweet expression in his eyes. I understand, and I wouldn't want to jeopardize anything either. But it doesn't mean the feelings aren't there. It doesn't mean the memories, the connection, the understanding we share isn't real. Anna nodded, letting a quiet sigh escape her. It is real, and that's what makes it complicated. There's nothing wrong with the feelings themselves. It's how we handle them that matters. They sat in silence, the air filled with unspo. The sky was overcast that morning, gray clouds casting a muted light across Maplewood. Anna sat at the kitchen table, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee mug as she tried to focus on the simple routine of her day. But the quiet hum of the house seemed louder than usual, echoing the tension that had been building in her chest for weeks. Luke's visit yesterday, their shared glances. The unspoken words, they all lingered, demanding acknowledgement. Anna had spent countless hours convincing herself that these feelings were harmless, a nostalgic echo of their past. Yet deep inside, she knew she couldn't ignore the subtle tug on her heart any longer. It was time to confront what had been left unsaid, even if it scared her. The knock at the door came at precisely the moment she had hoped and dreaded. Luke stood there, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers he had picked from the fields nearby. His smile was calm but carried a softness that made Anna's heart skip. "Good morning," he said quietly. "I thought I'd bring these for you. Just because." Anna took the flowers, their fragrance filling the small space between them. "Thank you, Luke," she said softly. "That's very thoughtful." There was a moment of hesitation, a pause in the rhythm of ordinary life before Luke spoke again. This time, his voice carried a weight it hadn't before. "Anna, I need to say something," he began, his eyes fixed on hers. "Something I should have said a long time ago. I can't keep it inside anymore." Anna's chest tightened. She had sensed this moment was coming, but had feared it, knowing that whatever he said could change everything. She nodded, encouraging him silently to continue. "I've always cared about you," Luke confessed, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Not in a way that would hurt anyone or disrupt lives, but deeply. For years, even when we were apart, I've carried a part of you in my heart. And seeing you again, feeling that connection rise back to the surface, it's made me realize that these feelings aren't going away." Anna's breath caught. Her mind raced, torn between the comfort of her marriage and the undeniable truth of the bond she shared with Luke. I feel it too," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "The closeness, the connection, it's still here. And it's been impossible to ignore, even when I tried." They stood in silence for a few moments, letting the words hang in the air. It wasn't a declaration of romance or desire, it was a heartfelt acknowledgement of the truth they had both carried quietly for years. There was respect, care, and honesty in that acknowledgement, and it carried more weight than any casual conversation could. Luke took a careful step closer, though still keeping a respectful distance. "I don't want to make things complicated with David. I don't want to hurt him. I love him in his own way. He's part of the life you built, and I respect that completely. But I also can't deny what I feel. It's part of who I am, part of who we are together in a way that doesn't have to change the life you've chosen." Anna felt tears prick at her eyes, not out of sadness, but from the intensity of the moment. It was rare to meet someone who truly understood you, who saw the real you, and yet did not demand anything that could harm your life. She reached out, gently placing her hand near his, feeling the quiet reassurance that had been missing from so many unspoken moments. "I know," she whispered, "and I don't want to ignore it either. It's real. Our bond, our connection. But we also have responsibilities, choices, and love that we cannot disregard. We have to be honest with ourselves and with the people we care about without letting this intensity overwhelm us." Luke nodded, his eyes reflecting both relief and sadness. "We've carried it quietly for too long," he said. "And now, acknowledging it, even just like this, it feels like we can breathe again. We don't have to act on it recklessly. We just have to be aware of it, understand it, and make sure it doesn't hurt the life you've built with David." Anna exhaled slowly, feeling the tension in her chest ease slightly. For the first time in weeks, she felt clarity. It wasn't about denying emotions or pretending they didn't exist. It was about navigating them with honesty, respect, and care. The moment stretched, peaceful and intense, all at once. They shared a quiet smile, a silent acknowledgement of everything that had been left unsaid for years. It was a turning point, not in a dramatic, life-altering way, but in a subtle, profound one. They had faced the truth, admitted it to each other, and now held it lightly. With maturity and awareness, double quotes, "Thank you for saying it," Anna murmured. "I've been afraid to face it myself. And now, I feel like I can. Even if it's just in small, quiet ways. Acknowledging it changes something inside me. It gives me perspective and peace." Luke smiled, a genuine warmth in his expression. "Me too. Sometimes honesty is all we need. Not to act, not to change anything, just to understand. And that's what we've done today." The clouds began to break apart outside, and sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, bathing the room in a soft, golden light. It felt symbolic, a quiet reminder that even complex emotions could exist without chaos. That truth could be expressed without harm, and that love, in all its forms, could be acknowledged responsibly. Anna looked at Luke and felt a sense of quiet resolution. Their bond was unspoken, yet understood, delicate, yet strong. The turning point had come, not through dramatic gestures or choices, but through honesty, courage, and the willingness to speak a long-held truth. And in that simple, heartfelt moment, she realized something profound. Some emotions don't need to be acted upon to matter. Sometimes, simply naming them, acknowledging them, and carrying them with care is enough to bring peace and hope to the heart. The morning air in Maplewood was crisp, carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves and freshly baked bread from the nearby bakery. Anna stepped onto the porch, the sun rising slowly over the rooftops, painting the world in warm shades of gold. The events of the past weeks, the visits, the quiet conversations, the unspoken truths had left her heart both full and light. She felt a clarity she hadn't experienced in years. Luke's visit yesterday had been honest, heartfelt, and grounded. They had acknowledged the emotions that lingered between them without crossing boundaries or complicating lives. And in doing so, they had discovered a simple but profound truth. Some connections could exist quietly, deeply, and respectfully without disrupting the life one had chosen. David, as always, was the foundation of Anna's world. She loved him in ways that were solid, nurturing, and enduring. He was the person she shared routines with, laughter with, and dreams that had been quietly built together over years. The realization that emotions could be acknowledged without jeopardizing that bond had brought Anna a deep sense of gratitude. That afternoon, Anna and David sat together on the porch swing, drinking tea and watching the sunlight filter through the trees. Their conversation was easy, familiar, yet tinged with a renewed sense of connection. Anna felt lighter, freer, like a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying had finally been set down. "I've been thinking," she began gently, "about how life sometimes reminds us of what's truly important. And I realize more than ever how grateful I am for what we have together." David reached out, taking her hand in his. I feel the same, he replied. Sometimes life tests us in quiet ways, in moments that aren't obvious, but it makes the ordinary days feel even more special. Anna smiled, her heart swelling with love. Exactly. It's the small things, the laughter, the shared memories, even the quiet understanding that matter most. And I think sometimes we need to acknowledge everything we feel, even if we don't act on it, to truly appreciate the people we love. They sat together, watching the gentle sway of the trees, the sunlight dancing on the leaves. In the distance, the faint sound of a car approaching brought a familiar warmth to Anna's heart. Luke had come by, as he often did. But now their interactions carried a new understanding, a gentle distance mixed with respect, care, and quiet affection that didn't need to intrude on the life Anna had chosen. Luke waved from the driveway, and Anna returned the gesture, smiling. When he stepped onto the porch, their conversation was light and easy. They spoke of small things, plans for the town fair, a new book Anna had started, a recipe he wanted to try, but there was a subtle acknowledgement between them, a quiet understanding that the bond they shared was strong, but safe, respectful, and entirely honorable. You've always been someone I admire, Luke said softly, and that hasn't changed. It's not about acting on anything. It's about knowing that connection exists, and it's okay to hold it gently. Anna nodded, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't expected. I've realized that too. Feelings don't always need to be acted upon to matter. Sometimes simply acknowledging them, cherishing them quietly, is enough. As Luke left later that afternoon, Anna closed the door and took a deep breath. The house felt warm and full of life. David returned soon after, carrying a small pumpkin he had picked up from the local market, smiling in his familiar, comforting way. The simplicity of the gesture, the shared laughter, the quiet intimacy of a life built together felt more profound than any dramatic moment could ever have been. That evening, Anna and David took a walk through the neighborhood, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink. They spoke about hopes for the future, their plans for the coming months, and the dreams they had quietly nurtured together. The challenges, the quiet emotional stirrings of the past weeks had straying.